Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Barbara Kerman. I received my master's degree in audiology from SU and my AUD from Salus University. I was a vice president at E3 Northeastern Technologies Group, which is an audiology equipment supplier, and now I serve in a consultatory role. I am also a member of the College of Arts and Sciences Dean's Advisory Board, and I am a dedicated supporter of the college and also of the Department of Communicative Sciences and Disorders. My husband and both of my children attended SU, so I have deep connections to the university. On behalf of the College of Arts and Sciences, I would like to welcome you to our Alumni Academy event this afternoon on the topic of over-the-counter hearing aids. Before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping items. First, we ask everyone to mute their microphones and keep them muted for the duration of the presentation, but this will ensure that everyone can hear our presenters. At the end of the presentation, we will have some time for Q&A. Also, I want you to know that we are recording this event and it will be shared on the college's website and YouTube channel so that people can view it after this evening. I would like to tell you a little bit about our Gebbie Clinic. The Gebbie Clinic was established in 1972 through the generous contributions of three organizations: the Gebbie Foundation of Jamestown, New York, the Association for the Aid of Crippled Children, and Syracuse University. All three organizations had a great interest in furthering studies related to communication disorders. Today, the Gebbie Clinic is the training site for graduate students enrolling in the speech language pathology and audiology programs at Syracuse. Since its dedication in 1972, the Gebbie Clinic has seen numerous updates as the needs of our students and clients has grown over the decades. Originally in the Hoople building on the main campus, the Gebbie Clinic celebrated its 40th anniversary in 2013 with the grand opening of the new facilities on Syracuse University's South Campus. The Gebbie Clinic is a state-of-the-art educational, clinical, and research facility. It includes speech therapy rooms, group therapy rooms, state-of-the-art technology for telepractice, voice and speech sound disorder evaluations and treatment, sound booths for hearing testing, a hearing aid fitting room for hearing testing, a place where we can simulate everyday listening environments, and an auditory brainstem response evaluation and vestibular testing room. The Gebbie Clinic offers personal, individualized service and support to adults, children, and families in need of diagnostic and treatment for a wide variety of speech, language, and hearing difficulties. Services are provided by our highly skilled students who are earning advanced degrees in speech pathology, speech language pathology, and audiology under the direct supervision of speech language pathologists and audiologists licensed by the New York State Department of Education and certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association. Right now, I would like to introduce you to our speakers for this afternoon. Tammy Kordas is an associate professor with the Department of Communicative Sciences and Disorders, as well as an audiology clinic supervisor at the Gebbie Speech Language Hearing Clinic. Her primary responsibility is to provide clinical education to audiology students at the Gebbie Hearing Clinic. Professor Kordas is also a fellow of the American Academy of Audiology and is an ambassador of the American Speech Language Hearing Association. She received her master's degree in audiology from Syracuse University and her doctor of audiology degree from Arizona School of Health Sciences. Our other presenter is Professor Kristen Kennedy. Kristen is a CHAP certified audiology clinic supervisor with expertise in adult and pediatric assessments, central auditory processing disorders, newborn hearing screenings, and amplification. Prior to working at Syracuse University, she worked for 10 years as an educational audiologist. Professor Kennedy is a fellow of the American Academy of Audiology and is certified by the American Speech Language Hearing Association. She received her master's degree in audiology from SUNY College at Fredonia and her Doctor of Audiology degree from Arizona School of Health Sciences. I'm very excited for today's conversation. So with that, I will turn our program over to Professor Kordas.
Good afternoon. I'm going to try to successfully share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can view that. So I wanted to welcome everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Elizabeth Cole for organizing this event. And thank you to Barbara Kerman for the warm introduction. Especially thank you for the support and the encouragement that you have provided to our CSD students throughout the years. I also want to welcome our SU alumni, in particular our audiology alumni. So nice to see familiar names and faces. Welcome to faculty and graduate students from West Virginia and UNC. Very excited that you were able to be here with us today. And thank you to family and friends who hopefully got a snow day and were able to join us today for today's topic. So let's get started here. So today's topic are the top 10 facts consumers should know about over-the-counter hearing aids. Our goal for today is to define an over-the-counter hearing aid. It's to distinguish between over-the-counter hearing aids and a prescriptive hearing aid. It's to also review the cost of an over-the-counter hearing aid and to discuss and be cautious of false advertising. And hopefully by the end of the presentation, we'll be able to answer the most common question that we've heard over the past 4 months, which is, am I a candidate for an over-the-counter hearing aid? So number one, what is an over-the-counter hearing aid? This is a device that amplifies sound that can be purchased without the support of a hearing healthcare professional. It's a new category of hearing aids, allowing consumers to buy over-the-counter devices directly from a retailer. Over-the-counter devices are for individuals 18 and over. A prescriptive hearing aid, on the other hand, is a hearing aid that is available from a hearing healthcare professional, such as an audiologist. An audiologist is an expert who provides patient-centered care in diagnosing, managing, and preventing hearing, balance, and related auditory disorders. Keep in mind that a prescriptive hearing aid is appropriate for all degrees of hearing loss and patients of all ages.
So I thought we should talk to you a little bit about what a prescription hearing aid has to offer so that you can compare it to what we'll be talking about coming right up about over-the-counter products. Prescription hearing aids are digital programmable devices that are very customizable. They are usually multi-channel, multi-program devices. What does that mean? Multi-channel means that there is very customizable, very programmable fine-tuning is what I think of when I talk to the people I work with about multi-channels. On the other hand, multi-programs, these are different ways the hearing aid works in different settings. For example, the hearing aid might work one way in quiet and work differently in noise, and again differently in a music situation. Those are all handled in packages called programs. current prescription hearing aids come in rechargeable models. They also have replaceable battery models available for people who do prefer that. And then the other thing about prescription hearing aids are all the digital ways that handles the listening situations. The first and probably the most evidence-based is directional microphones. Directional microphones really help for improving hearing in noisy situations. They have digital noise reduction features, which help give comfort in noise. They can digitally manage feedback. Now, feedback's going to happen pretty much anytime you put a speaker and a microphone in a single unit, and that definitely is the case for hearing aids. So when feedback happens in prescription hearing aids, it can be digitally managed. Prescription hearing aids generally are ear-to-ear connected. And what does that mean? Ear-to-ear connectivity means that the two hearing aids share information that are gathered at each of the microphones. And that's really helpful to have a pair that is working as a team. They're also connected to smartphones, Bluetooth, and there are apps available so that the person using the hearing aids can customize their device even further. Prescription hearing aids have trial periods. That means that for about the first 45 days, at least in New York State, you will have an opportunity to use those hearing aids and determine whether they are successful for you. And if during that time you find that they are not, then they can be returned for credit. They come with warranty, which helps for any time there might need to be a repair, and most of the time also a loss and damage replacement. Prescription hearing aids come in different levels of technology, and that's a little bit trickier to explain in the short time frame we have here, but basically you can have very, very sophisticated hearing aids that of course come at a certain price point, and then usually those hearing aids are offered at different lower price points, but are a little bit less sophisticated the lower that you pay. Prescription hearing aids also have accessory items, and for example, they might connect directly to a television audio, they might connect to a remote microphone, and remote controls.
So now that we have a good summary of what a prescriptive hearing aid device is, let's turn to OTCs. So number 2, when did OTCs become available? In 2017, the Over-the-Counter Hearing Aid Act was passed by Congress, and the FDA was required to develop regulations for this new category of OTC devices. The purpose was to provide easier access and affordability for consumers with hearing loss. And I will give you a statistic, which is kind of alarming, but there are 40 million Americans who have hearing loss. And 1 out of 7 actually seek treatment for hearing loss. The final FDA rule was released 5 years later in August of 2022. I think they were dealing with COVID, and that rule got delayed a little bit. I also want to kind of highlight here that even though OTC hearing aids have become available to patients on October 17th of 2022, devices have been on the market. In particular, you're still going to see devices on the market called PSAPs, or personal sound amplifying products. These devices are specifically for people who have difficulty hearing in certain situations, and they are products intended for normal hearing individuals. Number 3, what are the types of OTC hearing aids? Well, there are 2 categories here. We have a self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aid and a non-self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aid. The self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aid is going to incorporate some sort of technology or software that integrates user input. So this enables the user to independently customize their hearing aid. In order to do this, typically apps are involved, and often these apps can include a hearing assessment. I'll call it a hearing screening. And that way the self-fitting OTC will be programmed based on user input. The non-self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aid is a very basic hearing aid. It kind of reminds me of old analog hearing aids, for those of us that remember what an analog hearing aid used to be. These non-self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aids usually come with minimal adjustments, and that's going to include most likely a volume control and a program button that is typically preset by the manufacturer. Number 4, what is the cost of an over-the-counter hearing aid? Well, this is going to range anywhere between $200 to $1,300 per set. And we've been looking at a lot of OTCs over the past month. We've looked at non-self-fitting ones and self-fitting hearing aids. And like I previously mentioned, the non-self-fitting one, this is going to be the lower price range. The programs are going to be preset, typically with an omnidirectional microphone and disposable batteries. These non-self-fitting devices are going to be pretty basic, meaning they may benefit you in certain situations, but overall, in challenging listening environments, in my opinion, the non-self-fitting environment or in the non-self-fitting OTC is not going to be very helpful. The self-fitting OTC, on the other hand, these are higher price OTCs, but they differ, and they're going to differ per manufacturer. So, for example, some self-fitting devices have rechargeable options, some do not. Some have apps for adjustments, some do not. Some have audio streaming. And in particular, the more common manufacturers you would think would have Bluetooth connectivity for audio streaming, media streaming. And that's just not the case. Some of them do not have Bluetooth audio streaming. So it's it's really a mixed bag with these self-fitting OTCs.
So let's just summarize that again. If we think of all of the features that the programmable prescription hearing aids had that I listed prior to this, we're going to take a look at this list. It's a little bit shorter, but the features of the OTC may or may not be customizable, unknown number of channels for that fine tuning, may have programs, maybe 2, maybe none. So setting options, this is going to vary from device to device. And they may not have all of those advanced features that I talked about on the second slide I shared with you, like directional microphone use, noise reduction, digital feedback management, and connectivity.
Moving on to question number 5, what does an OTC look like? So OTCs are going to be semi-custom. And what I mean by that is they're going to either be receiver in the canal, which is a device that's worn behind the ear. So hopefully you can, I'm going to have to model my ear here, but hopefully you can see that this is a device that I'm putting behind my ear. So that's going to be one style. Hopefully you're able to see that. The other style is going to be in the ear. And this is a device that's actually worn in the ear. Looks very similar to an earphone, really. And this here is a charger for those of you who have not seen a charger when it comes to hearing aids. This is what it looks like. So the one thing that I want to kind of point out when it comes to style of an OTC is each manufacturer, as of right now, especially with the self-fitting devices, are only offering one style. So it's either you're going to get a receiver in the canal that's worn behind the ear, or you're going to be getting one that's worn in the ear. So as of right now, there's not many options when it comes to style. Each manufacturer is only really concentrating on one style at the present time. Hopefully that makes sense. So number 6, where can a patient buy an over-the-counter hearing aid? They can be purchased at any pharmacy, any drugstore, Amazon, Walmart. They can be ordered online. So several manufacturers sell OTC hearing aids. In fact, last week I went to a local drugstore and was able to buy one right at the pharmacy. So it's pretty easy to buy one, but not so easy when it comes to really looking at the differences between these devices and knowing the differences between these devices. So this is an important point here. Who is a candidate for an over-the-counter hearing aid? So these are going to be individuals with self-perceived mild to moderate hearing loss in both ears. So what does mild to moderate, what does it compare to? So this is usually when an individual has difficulty hearing the television, difficulty hearing speech in challenging listening situations, difficulty hearing speech in background noise. If a person has difficulty hearing conversational speech in quiet, they're most likely not a candidate for an over-the-counter device because their hearing loss is just too severe. And now would be a good time to highlight how an audiologist can help with determining if a person is a candidate for an OTC. Although an audiological evaluation is not required to obtain an OTC device, it is best practice to obtain a comprehensive hearing evaluation to determine type, degree of hearing loss, candidacy, and really to ensure comprehensive hearing health care.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that mild to moderate degree of hearing loss. And again, remind you that FDA has suggested that you only have to perceive yourself to have this mild to moderate degree. That can be a little tricky, as we have noticed in our practice that some folks with a great degree of hearing loss perceive it to be quite mild. And then at other times, people with very mild hearing loss perceive it to be much more severe. So that perceived portion of it is a little tricky and leads you with some questions. What you're looking at right now is what we call an audiogram. It's a portion of a hearing test that an audiologist would provide. This is exactly what we would use at the Gebbie Hearing Clinic. And as we train our audiology students, this is the tone testing part. You probably remember, maybe you call it the beep test. A lot of people do, where when you hear a beep, you have to raise your hand. And then we mark on this audiogram, what is the very softest sound you can hear? What is the very softest level you can hear each one of those beeps? It's not the only part of our hearing evaluation. We also look at word recognition testing. We look at middle ear and inner ear objective testing, and we look at how a person understands speech and noise. That would be a more complete test battery that you would get. But this is important. This beep test is important for finding the degree of a person's hearing loss and for programming the hearing aids if they are a candidate for that. I want to point out on this graph the two lines. You see one red circles, you have another one with blue X's. Let's take a look at the line with the red circles. Every time there's a circle on this audiogram, it represents the level that the person just started to hear that tone, that beeping tone. And for the red circles, they have a slight hearing loss at the lowest pitch. And then if we go all the way to the other end of that line, at the highest pitched, they're falling in the moderate hearing loss category. This is called a sloping hearing loss. It's slight to moderate. This would be a hearing loss that fits the criteria for over-the-counter hearing aids. Let's look at the lines with the blue X's. The blue X's are in the moderately severe category in the lowest frequencies. and actually take a little dip into the severe range in the mid frequencies. And then for the very highest pitches are still in the moderately severe hearing loss range. This is a hearing loss that is not a candidate for an over-the-counter product.
So what are some red flags or contraindications of OTC devices? I want to talk about the first three in particular because they're going to rule out candidacy, meaning moderate to severe hearing loss would not be a candidate for an OTC. Individuals under 18 years of age would not be a candidate for an OTC. And unilateral hearing loss of sudden or recent onset within the previous 90 days also would not be a candidate for an OTC. And I wanted to highlight those three items in particular because those are going to be individuals who are going to have to utilize a prescriptive hearing aid device. The rest of the items on this list will require medical management prior to determining if an individual is a candidate for an OTC. And then number 9, what is the return policy, return for credit for an OTC hearing aid? And what is the warranty? So a return for credit is not required by the FDA. This is going to be determined by the manufacturer. So the devices that we have been looking at, we have seen kind of a range here. So 30 days to 60 days, again, depending on the manufacturer. Most states, keep in mind, require a return for credit policy for a prescriptive hearing aid. So let's talk a little bit about warranty. So the devices that we have been looking at over the past month usually come with a 1-year warranty. So what happens is if the user happens to need repair of those OTC devices after that 1 year, they will have to buy a new set of OTC devices because once that 1 year is up, that is it. You cannot send in that unit for repair. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Now, prescriptive devices, depending on the practice, they usually come with a 2 to 3 year warranty. And even after that, you can still send the device in for repair for a fee. That is not the case with an OTC device. So number 10, is the over-the-counter hearing aid providing appropriate volume, appropriate amplification? So really the consumer of an over-the-counter hearing aid will not know. The volume can be set at maybe a comfortable level, but they're not going to know if it's ideal or not. So in contrast, objective testing is what audiologists use by performing real ear measures. This is really best practice when fitting prescription hearing aids. And this objective testing using real ear measures will determine if a hearing aid is providing enough volume or amplification and if they meet prescriptive targets based on the individual's hearing loss. Real ear measures will also let you determine if the maximum output of a hearing aid is at a safe listening level or is the device exceeding uncomfortable loudness levels.
So I thought what we would do next is take a look at some of those real ear measures that Dr. Kordas just mentioned. We, in getting ready for this talk with you, we went shopping. We went to a local pharmacy. We purchased a set of non-self-fitting hearing aids, over-the-counter hearing aids. It was about $300. It has a replaceable battery, so non-rechargeable. It had a volume control wheel, and it had 2 program options that you toggled between by pressing a button. What we found when we did some real ear measures was that the results of how the hearing aid was working was very dependent on the hearing loss configuration. And let me show you what that looks like. So if you're in audiology and in my audience here, you recognize the graph that's on the right-hand screen. This is, I won't get into all the details of this graph, But this is a printout of that objective test that we refer to as real ear measures, and is part of the battery of things that we provide at Gebbie Hearing Clinic and are teaching our future audiologists, our audiology students to perform. And so what we did is that we decided that the first hearing loss we wanted to see if the hearing aid could meet the needs for was a flat moderate hearing loss. Now, if you remember, the moderate hearing loss category is fittable. FDA says this is a hearing loss that over the counter would be good for. In our testing, we found that the only way it met good targets for some of the speech signal was in the high frequencies and with the maximum volume. We had to turn the volume wheel all the way to the loudest setting. It did not, even at the loudness setting, meet the needs for the low frequencies. It was severely underfit. This person with a moderate flat hearing loss, if they chose this device, would probably still have difficulty understanding soft speech and would have no available volume control increase. So let's look at how this device might fit a mild to moderate sloping hearing loss. A mild to moderate hearing loss of this degree is fairly typical of what we see in early age-related hearing loss. We call that presbycusis. We were able to meet the targets for this particular hearing loss. The hearing aid volume had to be set about 5 steps louder than the default setting. The default loudness, it's actually when you turn the hearing aid on, it defaulted to one setting and you could go about 10 steps louder or 10 steps softer. We made it 5 steps louder and we were able to meet the targets. And this person would still have some available volume control. I guess the point of these past 2 slides is that if you're perceiving your hearing loss correctly, you may be able to achieve this a good target. We're going to have good loudness. But if you're not perceiving it appropriately, or you have a very specific flat type of hearing loss, this may not fit your hearing loss well, even though it meets the criteria.
And then when we take a look at this last real ear measures, this is a moderate to severe hearing loss. And this is just summarizing that the response of the hearing aid does not meet the targets anywhere. So low frequencies, mid frequencies, high frequencies, this individual with a moderate to severe hearing loss is simply not getting a benefit from an over-the-counter hearing aid. It is not capable of providing enough volume or enough amplification to hear conversational level speech. And just so some final thoughts for today, I want consumers to be careful and be cautious, specifically of false advertising or overzealous claims, other than those indicated, meaning perceived to mild to moderate hearing loss. So claims such as restoration of natural hearing, management for greater degrees of hearing loss, built-in tinnitus management software. Believe it or not, all 3 of these things we have seen in the past month. And also be very careful of counterfeit OTC devices. I didn't want to name manufacturers today, but I'm going to name one, in particular Sony, because that is the #1 OTC that is counterfeited. So make sure if you are purchasing these devices that you are purchasing them from the actual manufacturer and not on eBay or online. It really should be from the manufacturer. And I'm going to give you an example and highlight just the information that was provided to the one OTC that we bought at the drugstore. So Dr. Kennedy already talked about degrees of hearing loss and how we diagnose hearing loss. On the left-hand side, this was the information that was provided with the OTC that we purchased. So moderate hearing loss, 41 to 55 we're looking at, but the information that was provided with the OTC now is saying that a moderate hearing loss is anywhere up to 69 decibels, and that is just completely inaccurate. So if I was a patient and I saw that my hearing loss was in the severe range of 65 to 69, I would think, yes, this OTC is going to be appropriate for me. It's not. So the level of hearing loss that was provided with this one particular, happened to be the one that we bought, is just not consistent with how we diagnose hearing loss. So again, as a consumer, you just need to be very careful for some of the false information that is out there. And that is Otto with our otoscope. Go Orange, and thank you for listening and being part of our event today.
Thank you so much. That was a very, very informative presentation. And now I'd like to open this up for some questions. We have in the chat 11 questions already, and I'm going to read them so our very informed professors can decide how they want to answer them. And if you haven't put a question in the chat, you may raise your hand as well. So the first question was, hold on, let me see if I can find it. Well, somebody asked us if we can provide the details of the clinic that I referenced, and that is the Gebbie Clinic. And I think, did we have a slide about that, the contact information for Gebbie? If not, I'm sure we'll be able to get this. Someone is asking, Joanne, will you be able to share this presentation deck with us afterwards? I'd love to share some of this information with other family members who are currently considering hearing aids. If one of you want to take that question, that was from Joanne Gassioni.
Yes, I believe today's presentation is recorded, and I'd be happy to share my PowerPoint as well. So I will also list or give my email. So if anyone wants the PowerPoint, you're more than welcome to it.
Thank you so much. And Gail Shemin has asked, can 5G, I'm assuming relative to cell phones, cause hearing loss or other hearing problems like tinnitus or hyperacusis?
That's a great question. So tinnitus is a symptom of many things, but it's highly correlated in a symptom with hearing loss. There's nothing in the research that indicates that 5G would cause tinnitus or cause hearing loss that I know of. But the best way to really determine if a hearing loss is present is to, of course, get a hearing evaluation, and also maybe even a tinnitus evaluation if that's bothersome.
Okay, thank you so much. And David Marut is asking, can hearing aids, OTC or prescriptive, help with tinnitus?
I'll take that one too, seeing as I guess I'm the tinnitus expert. Tinnitus is, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes to all three, over the counter and prescriptive, because for treating tinnitus, the main treatment would be sound therapy. And an OTC is able to do that as well as prescriptive hearing aid. A prescriptive hearing aid is going to do a little bit more, because you can have a sound generator within the hearing aid, and I won't go into the details about that, but the whole goal with treating tinnitus is to bring up your sound environment so that you are decreasing your tinnitus perception.
Thank you. Next question from Natan Gonan is Lively, which is a brand of hearing aid, top of the line hearing aid, is for this particular brand, is that considered OTC?
I think I can answer this. Well, the answer to this is I'm not sure. The Lively brand is a name that I have heard. And there is a whole group of mail order hearing aids or mail order prescriptive hearing aids that we didn't get into today. And I believe Lively may fall into that category, where you need to provide an audiogram to the company. They program the hearing aid and then they mail it to you. And then you're left to fit and make sure that it fits well and that you understand how to use it. I think that's it. But Tammy, do you have any other familiarity with that brand?
I do not.
I believe also they do have online audiology consult available.
They
you know,
do. They
phone
do.
support type thing.
Mhm.
The next question is by Thomas SU74, who also has his hand raised. So I'm not sure if it's the same question, but he's asking, what's the name of the counterfeit OTC you referred to? And one of you want to take that?
So I'll take that. It's the only OTC device offered by Sony. So it's the Sony CRE CIC. That, from what I've read and from what I understand, is the most counterfeited OTC device. So you just want to be very careful. If you go with Sony, my advice to you is buy it from the website, from the Sony website.
Thank you. The next question is from Howard Edelman, class of 74. And he writes, the New York Times recently published a fairly extensive article about OTC hearing aids, including recommendations as to which device were best for certain individuals. Assuming you have seen and reviewed the article, is it a reliable guide, and do you agree with their assessments?
I have to be honest, I didn't read the article from the New York Times, so I'd be curious as to what devices. I mean, I probably can guess what devices they're referring to. I'm guessing Sony is on there. I'm guessing Bose is on there. And like I said, these self-fitting devices, they have some good features, but they're just not standard across all of the self-fitting OTCs.
Okay, thank you. Carol is asking two parts. Can it help with tinnitus, which you addressed? And then this is another hot topic in our world. What can you tell us about hearing loss and dementia?
All right, so let me take a stab at that for you. We know that hearing loss and dementia they go together for many folks. What we don't know is the cause and effect. We don't have an established hearing loss causes dementia. There are many theories that are, there's a lot of research in this area right now, trying to look at how they interact together. They do seem to interact where hearing loss can make dementia appear to be worse. And it also can be the reverse, where the dementia makes it hard to evaluate hearing and to treat the hearing. So I guess the short answer is there's no cause and effect. It does not cause dementia, but there is there's associations with them, and people are understanding that people with hearing loss seem to have more dementia. There's just a higher group of folks that have the two go hand in hand.
Thank you. This one came to our faculty directly, and we are being asked, which OTC would you say is the most sophisticated and capable?
I'll take this one. It depends on what you're looking for. If you are looking for Bluetooth capability to stream phone calls, media, audio, I would say the Jabra Resound or GN Jabra is probably the most beneficial for that. That would be probably my recommendation.
Thank you. This is a sort of a multi-part question. Does using a hearing aid at an earlier age mean that your hearing is only to get worse as you age? Should one hold off using an aid as long as possible? What if you only have diminished hearing on one side?
That's a
lot of layers to that question.
There are layers, yeah. So let's start with the worry that using hearing aids at an early age could cause more hearing loss. And actually, what we the research supports the evidence is that the earlier a person with hearing loss starts to use hearing aids, the more likely those hearing aids are going to be helpful. Understand that if, and we didn't cover this very fully in our slides, that prescription hearing aids are fit so that loud sounds are not going to be made so loud that they're damaging to your hearing. All right. And so we can fit the hearing loss and make things loud enough for you to hear, but not make loud sounds so loud that it's uncomfortable, damaging. And most research supports that the earlier you wear hearing aids, that's actually the better situation.
Thank you.
Do you want to take the unilateral question, Tammy?
Barbara, can you repeat the unilateral question again?
Sure. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, yes. What if you have, what if you only have diminished hearing in one ear, meaning a single-sided or unilateral
Right.
hearing loss?
A prescriptive device is going to be the best bet in that case. I would rule out OTCs for one thing. You can't buy OTC, a single OTC. You're buying it in a set. And usually those are complex hearing losses, and a prescriptive device is going to be much more beneficial than an OTC for an asymmetrical or a unilateral hearing loss.
The next question actually asked about that too. One, John has moderately severe hearing in one ear based on a recent hearing test. Would he be a candidate for OTC hearing aids? And relative to your answer, the answer
I would say
be,
no.
Right. No.
No.
Okay. If you have only hearing loss in one ear, do you need two aids?
No. If you have hearing loss just in one ear, you would just need one hearing aid. And again, I think prescriptive devices would be the way to go. I just think once you get into a unilateral loss or an asymmetrical hearing loss, we need to look at different options, such as perhaps cross or bicross, which we didn't get into today, but that's just different technology for those specific types of hearing loss.
Thank you. We have two folks who added that the New York Times article was in the wire cutter section of the New York Times. So I'm sure you could be able to find it that way. And then this last question, which actually was the first question. His name is Jeremy Finn, and I missed his initial question, so I'm glad he came back again. His hearing loss is not a matter of volume, he says, but a clarity of speech. Can you say more about one example with a severe left ear loss? I guess maybe he's talking about asymmetry, etc. But his initial question had to do not with volume, but with clarity of speech.
So speech clarity can differ from one hearing loss to the next. And some folks do have difficulty with speech clarity, no matter, even if they're hearing, their beep test might look identical to somebody else's, they may have poor speech clarity than another person who has pretty good speech clarity, and that's troublesome. In that case, we really highly recommend the prescriptive fine-tuned devices, because it's often the case that speech clarity comes from the fact that you have hearing loss in just certain frequencies, typically high frequencies, where with normal low frequencies, and you feel like, oh, I don't need volume. I hear people talking, it's just not clear. When in reality, you have that high frequency hearing loss, and that's contributing to the speech or word understanding difficulty. And a fine-tuned prescription hearing aid can often help to overcome that.
Thank you. David Marut is asking, if you have two hearing aids without Bluetooth, could you wear over-the-ear headphones to listen to music? Well, I can give you my own experience, since I wear two hearing aids and they are connected with Bluetooth, or I don't have to have them connected with Bluetooth. I can wear a headset and listen to music. I am currently wearing my hearing aids and I have my headset connected to the computer. So maybe that's not in every case, but with my hearing aids, it absolutely is possible. And one of our listeners said, thank you so much for the informative program. She's worn hearing aids for over 60 years. The new technology is amazing. Love my Bluetooth. Well, that's great to hear. And Paul is asking, what is the cost range for prescriptive hearing aids?
On average, about $5,000 for a set of prescriptive hearing aids. It's going to be dependent on the practice, of course, but about $5,000. So quite a bit more.
And Allie Hepner is asking, do audiologists help with diagnosis if someone is considering OTC?
And that's a great question. And that is where I think audiologists can play a big role in this. And yes, individuals should be, although it's not, again, required, but individuals, if they're noticing a hearing loss, they should come in and get their hearing tested, because that is the only way they're going to know if the device is appropriate for their hearing loss. Otherwise, you might be spending $1,000 on a device and you're not a candidate for it. Your hearing loss is too severe.
We have some additional questions. Let's see, this is a very excellent question. Monica Sandler, are hearing aids typically covered by insurance? Regular, not Medicare?
You know, I've been at Ashino for 21 years, and I'm finally can answer this question and say, yes, some insurance companies are finally covering a portion of hearing aids. So I haven't seen insurance really cover 100%, but they're finally covering a portion. And with over-the-counter devices, at least the insurance companies that we work with at the Gebbie Clinic, they do not cover OTC devices. So that's something to take into consideration as well.
Carol is asking, can you give us some manufacturer names for prescriptive?
I was really trying to stay away from manufacturer names, but I guess it's inevitable. So there's the top manufacturers for prescriptive devices. They are going to include Resound, Phonak, Oticon, Starkey, Widex. So those are the more common ones. And don't ask me which one that I like over the other, because I won't answer that. But I will tell you that those are the main manufacturers.
Andy is asking about Medicare coverage with respect to hearing aids.
Medicare does not cover hearing aids.
Unless I will have to say that we're discovering that there are some Medicare Advantage plans with third-party involvement. It gets a little complicated. These Medicare Advantage plans will say that there's hearing aid coverage, and basically you are required to purchase from a third-party provider. And hopefully that third party involves an audiology office in some way for the diagnostic hearing evaluation, and hopefully for the fitting and verification of that hearing aid as well.
And Marilyn, 1 second, hold on, I just lost that. Marilyn was asking about using hearing aids at the same time you're using theater hearing devices, I guess, infrared or whatever the hearing device is. Do you keep the hearing aids in or not?
I think it would depend on the assistive listening system that is offered. So if it's a loop system and your hearing aid is capable of connecting to a loop system and has a telecoil in it, then yes, you can. So that would be the best way to improve the signal to noise ratio in a environment like that. Otherwise, you would take the hearing aids out and use whatever receiver is offered at that environment.
Let's see. We had another point that is anyone a singer, and do you sing with the hearing aid in your ear?
I am not a singer. Oh, goodness, no.
I've had some of my patients who are they're involved in choir, they're musicians of other types, and I find that my musicians who are vocalists want to keep their hearing aids in while they're singing. They definitely have experimented both ways. For example, someone in a choir wanted to be sure that they could hear the other parts and make sure that they were in tune. Most musicians will describe that hearing music through hearing aids is not the way it was when they had normal hearing, but most prefer to, I think, keep their hearing aids in when they're experiencing their music.
And Bruce has commented that he has Lively and paid $1,400 and has most of the prescriptive features. And you meet with an audiologist online, but better if you give them a professional audiogram, and they're rechargeable and have a 3-year warranty. So it's sort of a hybrid, I guess.
Right. Yeah, because you're getting audiology support, so that's good.
And
but I think what would be confusing is if you need an adjustment, you have to send the device back to the manufacturer. That would be my only question, is what if you need adjustments, or what if that maybe they're capable of doing that.
And the writer also said that the company was bought by Jabra, so I don't know what the current state is. And another listener indicated, Nathan, that he bought the Lively but returned it because it didn't serve him well. Oh,
I'm curious. Well, I have, I guess, a question for that individual. What didn't you like about it?
I don't know. Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
Can I speak or just okay? It's just, it has the top of the line, and I thought it will serve me, but it didn't fit well in the ear canal. I felt, and whatever the audiologist did, adjustment, the next day it was the same issue, and I had to go to the app, and I didn't know exactly what to do, but mostly because it wasn't comfortable on the ear.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's actually quite common when it comes to these OTC devices. Is the fit can be an issue, the sound quality can be an issue, and there's just not a lot of adjustments you can do on your own.
And I think we have time for one more question. Elizabeth is saying, can you clarify your points about fit? It sounds like this applies mostly to the style of hearing aid and less about physical fit, as opposed to small, medium, and large. Do these styles just refer to personal preference of behind the ear, in the ear, or?
Well, like I said, with the manufacturers right now, each manufacturer with self-fitting devices are just offering either a receiver in the canal or in the ear, and they come with little tips that are small, medium, and large, and that's as customizable as it gets. So if you want a receiver in the ear, you have to go with a certain manufacturer, and if you want one that's in the ear, you have to go with a certain manufacturer. They're just not offering both as of right now, but I think eventually they'll get there. But right now it's just not available with the self-fitting devices that I've looked at.
Thank you. And Janet McKenna from Arts and Sciences in 63 says, I hope people know about the Hearing Loss Association of America, which is a support education advocacy group for people with hearing loss. And thank you very much for that point. And on that note, I want to thank Professors Kordas and Kennedy so much for joining us this afternoon. This was a fantastic discussion, including very many appropriate and lively questions. I'm happy we had the chance to learn from you today. And I want to thank all of our guests for attending today's alumni activity. We really appreciate you being here. We will be hosting more of these events throughout the academic year, so stay tuned for more invitations from the college. With that, I will say thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.